Jimmy Fallon said a name, and Keanu Reeves turned his head away. The Tonight Show. Monday night. Studios 6A at Rockefeller Center. Cameras rolling live. 300 audience members settling into their seats, buzzing with excitement because Keanu Reeves was the guest, beloved, enigmatic, the internet's favorite human. Jimmy was in his element. The monologue had gone well. The audience was warm. Keanu had walked out to thunderous applause, that trademark humble smile on his face, wearing a simple dark suit, looking exactly like the man everyone loved, grounded, kind, present. They'd been talking for maybe 4 minutes. Easy conversation. Jimmy asking about the new movie. Keanu answering with his characteristic thoughtfulness, choosing words carefully, making the audience lean in because when Keanu Reeves speaks, people listen. So this film, Jimmy said, glancing at his blue cards, it's about second chances, right? About getting another opportunity to do things differently? Yeah, Keanu nodded. It's about what we carry with us. And whether we can ever really let it go. Jimmy smiled, sensing something deeper but keeping it light. That's what a good host does. That's heavy stuff. Did you draw on anything personal for this role? It was a standard question. The kind Jimmy had asked 1,000 guests 1,000 times. Innocuous. Safe. Designed to let the guests share as much or as little as they wanted. Keanu's expression shifted slightly. Something passed behind his eyes, a shadow, a memory, something old and painful surfacing. There was someone, Keanu said quietly, his voice different now, lower, who taught me about second chances. A long time ago. The audience was completely silent, sensing the mood change. Jimmy leaned forward, instinctively understanding this was going somewhere real. Yeah? Can you tell us about them? Keanu hesitated. His jaw worked like he was trying to decide something. Then, barely audible. Her name was River. Jimmy's face changed instantly. The prepared smile vanished. His hands, which had been holding his interview cards loosely, went rigid. River? Jimmy repeated, his voice careful, like he was handling something fragile. And Keanu Reeves. Stoic, composed Keanu Reeves, who had faced personal tragedy with grace for decades, turned his head sharply to the right, away from the cameras, away from Jimmy, his hand rising to cover his eyes. Jimmy stopped mid-conversation. The entire studio froze. The cameras stayed locked on them. The Roots, who had been ready with a musical sting for after the segment, didn't move. Questlove sat with his drumsticks lowered, staring. The audience didn't breathe. Jimmy's interview cards slipped from his fingers and scattered across his desk. He didn't notice. He was staring at Keanu, whose shoulders had hunched inward, whose entire body language screamed he'd just been hit by something he wasn't ready for. Keanu, Jimmy said softly, abandoning all protocol, all the rhythms of late-night television. This wasn't a host talking to a guest anymore. This was one human being reaching toward another in pain. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No. Keanu's voice was rough, muffled behind his hand. It's okay. It's... God, I haven't said her name out loud in... He didn't finish. The control room was chaos. Director Dave Diamadi was frantically asking into his headset whether they should cut to commercial. Producer Katie Hockmeyer stood frozen, hand over her mouth, tears already forming because she could see on the monitors what everyone in the studio could feel. Something real and raw and unrehearsed was happening. Keep rolling, Katie whispered. Just keep rolling. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. To understand what happened next, you need to understand who River was. Her name was River Song McKenzie. Not famous. Not an actress or musician or anyone the public would recognize. She was a film student at NYU in 1991, 22 years old, brilliant and funny and filled with the kind of infectious energy that made everyone around her feel more alive. Keanu was 27 then. He'd had some success, a few movies, some recognition, But he wasn't Keanu Reeves, global icon, yet. He was still figuring out who he was, what kind of actor he wanted to be, how to navigate sudden fame while staying grounded. He met River at a coffee shop in the East Village. She was sitting alone, reading a book about cinematography, and Keanu, who usually avoided attention, found himself drawn to the intense concentration on her face. He asked what she was reading. She looked up, didn't recognize him, and launched into a 20-minute passionate explanation of Vittorio Storaro's use of color theory. They talked for 3 hours. She never asked about his movies. She wanted to know what he thought about art, about truth, about whether film could change people's lives. By the time they left that coffee shop, Keanu was in love, not with the romance movie version of love, but with the real thing. The kind that makes you want to be better. They dated for 11 months. River wanted to make documentaries about social justice. Keanu supported her completely, even helped fund her senior film project about homeless youth in New York. She taught him to see his fame as a tool, not a burden. "You have a platform," she'd say. "Use it for something that matters." In September 1992, River was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Aggressive. Advanced. The doctors gave her maybe 18 months with treatment. Keanu put his career on pause. He moved into her tiny studio apartment. He drove her to chemotherapy appointments. He held her hair when she was sick. He read to her when she was too weak to hold books. He stayed. River's final project was a short documentary about second chances. Interviewing people who'd faced death and survived, asking them what they'd do differently if they got more time. She filmed it between chemo sessions, Keanu operating the camera when she was too tired. She died before she could finish it. April 15, 1993. Keanu was holding her hand. Her last words to him were, "Promise me you'll finish it. Promise me you'll show people that every day is a second chance." Keanu kept that promise. He completed her documentary. He got it into the Sundance Film Festival under her name. It won an award. But Keanu never spoke about it publicly. River wasn't a story to tell for sympathy or press. She was his, private and sacred, and he carried her memory in silence for the next 31 years. Until tonight. When Jimmy Fallon asked an innocent question about second chances and something inside Keanu cracked open. Behind the scenes, Jimmy made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. The studio was still frozen in that awful, beautiful silence. Keanu had lowered his hand from his face, revealing red-rimmed eyes, tears tracking down his cheeks. He was staring at the floor, jaw clenched, fighting for composure. Jimmy stood up from behind his desk. The audience gasped quietly. Hosts don't leave their desk during interviews. It's not done. The geography of late-night television is sacred. Host behind desk, guest in chair, clear separation of roles. Jimmy didn't care. He walked around his desk and sat on its edge, directly beside Keanu's chair, close enough that their knees almost touched. He didn't say anything. He just sat there, present, waiting. Keanu looked up at him. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to, this wasn't supposed to." "Don't apologize," Jimmy said firmly. "Not here. Not for this." He paused, then asked gently, "Who was River?" And Keanu told him. Not everything. Not the intimate details that belonged only to them. But enough. He told the audience about the film student who taught him to see his career differently. About the 11 months that changed his life. About the promise he'd kept for 31 years. "She made me promise," Keanu said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, "that I would finish her documentary. That I would show it to people. And I did. But I never talked about her. I never used her story for this." He gestured vaguely at the cameras, the studio, the apparatus of fame. "Because she wasn't mine to share. She was mine to remember." Jimmy was crying too now, not hiding it, tears running down his face while 300 people and millions at home watched two men being completely, vulnerably human on live television. "Why tonight?" Jimmy asked softly. "Why did saying her name?" "Because," Keanu took a shuddering breath, "today would have been her 55th birthday. And I woke up this morning thinking about her for the first time in months and wondering if I was forgetting. If time was doing what everyone says it does, making it easier, making her less real. And then you asked about second chances and I wasn't ready. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home, ever saw coming." Jimmy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pen. Not just any pen. The Mont Blanc his father had given him when he got The Tonight Show, the pen he'd used to sign every contract, every important document in his career. His most valuable possession. He held it out to Keanu. "I want you to have this," Jimmy said. Keanu looked confused. "Jimmy, I can't." "River's documentary," Jimmy interrupted. "Do you still have it?" "Yeah. Of course. I have the original reels in storage. I want you to digitize it. Restore it. And when you do, I want you to write the dedication with this pen." Jimmy's voice was steady now, certain. "Write her name. Write what she meant. Make sure the world knows who River Song McKenzie was." Keanu stared at the pen like it might burn him. "Why would you?" "Because 31 years is long enough," Jimmy said simply. "Because you've honored her memory by staying silent, and that was beautiful. But maybe now it's time to honor her by letting people see what she created. By giving her the second chance she gave everyone in that documentary." The studio erupted. Not applause, not yet. Something deeper. A collective exhale. 300 people releasing breath they didn't know they'd been holding. The Roots started playing something soft, gentle, barely audible. Questlove had tears streaming down his face. Keanu took the pen with shaking hands. He looked at it for a long moment, then pulled Jimmy into a hug that wasn't performative or camera-ready. Just two human beings holding each other while the world watched. When they pulled apart, Keanu spoke directly to the camera. Her name was River Song McKenzie. She was 23 when she died. She wanted to make the world better through film. And if you're watching this, if you're struggling, if you've lost someone, if you're wondering if you'll ever feel okay again, River would want you to know that every single day is a second chance. Don't waste it. The audience rose as one. Standing ovation. But quiet, reverent. The kind of applause that honors grief and courage in equal measure. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Jimmy let the show run 20 minutes over. They didn't do any other segments. They just talked, Keanu sharing stories about River, Jimmy listening, the audience bearing witness. After the show, Keanu did exactly what Jimmy asked. He found River's documentary reels. He had them professionally restored and digitized. Using Jimmy's pen, he wrote a dedication, for River Song McKenzie, 1969 to 1993, who taught me that every day is a second chance. I'm sorry it took me 31 years to give you yours. The documentary premiered at Sundance again, this time with Keanu present, this time with River's full story told. It won another award. Keanu donated all proceeds to leukemia research in River's name. Jimmy's pen never left Keanu's possession. He carries it everywhere. And every April 15th, he uses it to write River's name in a journal he keeps, a journal of second chances, of moments he would have missed if she hadn't taught him to pay attention. That night changed The Tonight Show. Jimmy stopped being just a comedian. He became the host who made space for real grief on late-night television. The documentary premiered at Sundance 6 months later. Keanu attended. He used Jimmy's pen to sign the dedication in the opening credits. For River Song McKenzie, 1969 to 1993, who taught me that every day is a second chance. The film won the Audience Award. Keanu donated all proceeds to leukemia research in River's name. He carries Jimmy's pen everywhere now. Every April 15th, he uses it to write her name, a ritual of remembrance, a promise kept. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. 3 years later, Keanu executive produced a series of documentaries by young filmmakers, all funded by the River Song McKenzie Foundation. Jimmy donated the first $1 million. The pen sits in Keanu's jacket pocket. River's name lives on. And every time someone asks Keanu about second chances, he smiles and says, "Someone very wise taught me about those." Her name was River. And now, finally, the world knows.